Here are the 5 players I dislike for 2024, not as people or anything, just relative to baseball performance expectations. I pride myself and think of myself as a man of faith, but that faith does not extend to Nick Castellanos in the year 2024 of our Lord. It did back in 2021, when I featured Castellanos as a player I liked after a less than impressive debut season with the Reds. So we've come full circle, and now I'm the Castellanos pessimist instead of the Castellanos optimist. In 2023, Castellanos did much better in his second season in Philadelphia than his first, chiefly because he found his power stroke, hitting 29 home runs after settling for just 13 the year before. He did this by changing up the distribution of his batted balls, re-emphasizing pulling the ball in the air. But he did make sacrifices to do that. I've always felt hitting was a constant seesaw between contact quality and contact quantity, and Castellanos focused on the former at the expense of the latter last year. His strikeout rate jumped up from 23% to 28%, the highest of his career in a full season. His walk rate, meanwhile, remained unbudged. Don't get me wrong, a bump in strikeouts is certainly worth doubling your home run rate, but what if it gets even worse? Castellanos had an enormous 18.7% swinging strike rate in 2023, highest among all qualified batsmen. He's also entering his age 32 season, a time when many power-oriented corner outfield and DH types may start to see steep decline. Or maybe that won't happen at all. JD Martinez is a similar player, and he excelled last year in his age 35 season with a strikeout rate over 30%. Still, while Castellanos might fundamentally be one of the most likable players in the league, I can't help but dislike his chances of being an impact bat for the Phillies in 2024. Sorry for the outfit change, I just realized I have to re-record this because I was totally saying the next player's last name wrong. Nolan Schanuel, not Schanuel, was big league ready from the day he was selected in the first round of the 2023 draft. That's what the Angels have been prioritizing lately. Big league readiness. And Schanuel promptly rocketed through the minors in just 22 games, mirroring the 58 games played by Zach Neto and 29 appearances by Ben Joyce before their own big league debut. Known for his plate discipline above all other skills, in 2023 Schanuel had a .615 on-base percentage at Florida Atlantic University, a .505 on-base percentage in the minor leagues, and a .402 on-base in 29 games in the majors. At all those levels, he walked more than he struck out. One reason I'm picking Schanuel as a dislike candidate is that he's exactly the moneyball, gets on base type of professional hitter I should adore, but that ability generally has to be backed up by the threat of damage. The threat that the hitter in question will hurt you if you throw too many pitches in the strike zone, thus prompting the pitcher to throw 4 balls in the first place. Schanuel hasn't yet demonstrated that threat. He's hit 2 home runs in his first 51 professional games. In the majors, his average exit velocity was just 85.4 miles per hour, and his ground ball rate was nearly 50%. He had the slowest bat speed of any hitter in the league last year. This type of hitter already exists in today's MLB, an elite strike zone understander without the threat of damage. Look at Tony Kemp or Geraldo Perdomo. Sure, they can draw walks, but not as many as they would if pitchers actually feared the consequences of attacking them in the zone. Plus, new Angels manager Ron Washington seems to want him batting in front of Trout, so he's definitely not getting pitched around in that case. Because of his statistical performances in a small sample so far, projection systems love Schanuel, with Zips being the most optimistic at a projected 120 WRC+. Vegas gives him the 4th best odds of winning AL Rookie of the Year in 2024, behind Jackson Holliday, Evan Carter, and Wyatt Langford. But I'm not seeing it. Until Schanuel demonstrates he can make pitchers pay for attacking him in the zone, he won't impress statistically. There's not much wiggle room in today's MLB for a light-hitting first baseman. Dislike. Good news! The Diamondbacks just signed a veteran 30-year-old lefty with a strong track record of success to an $80 million deal. Bad news, the last time they did that, it went really bad. Now, I'm not saying Eduardo Rodriguez is about to have a Madison Bumgarner-esque decline, but I am skeptical he'll be able to replicate his 3.30 ERA from 2023 in 2024. In his final year with the Tigers, Erod had a career-low BABIP and home run fly ball percentage. He also benefited from playing in the AL Central. He had a 1.78 ERA and 27% strikeout rate versus divisional opponents last year. Outside the division, he had a 4.30 ERA and 21% strikeout rate. The latter is more in line with what I think he'll do moving to the NL West. I know the schedule is more balanced these days, but in a full season he will still have to deal with tougher lineups within the division. Another ding is that Rodriguez doesn't have overpowering stuff, but that's always been the case. He doesn't have a lead extension, his fastball sits around 92, and, truth be told, none of his pitches wow in terms of their movement. His arsenal works because he has 5 pitches that do different things, and historically he's been able to locate those pitches well. One shorthand I use to look at a pitcher's ability to locate is their shadow percentage, essentially what percentage of their pitches end up in the shadow of the strike zone. 2023 represented a year of decline in that regard, his second in a row. Among full-time starters, Eduardo Rodriguez was average at locating, and average command probably won't cut it for him given the lack of stuff. So with all that in mind, Eduardo Rodriguez is a pitcher I dislike. He's a pro's pro, but it's becoming increasingly harder to project good outcomes for him. Disliking Dylan Cease is a tricky proposition because he already had a 4.58 ERA last year, but baseball fans who know their stuff wouldn't dare take that number at face value. His name continues to pop up in trade rumors, featuring lucrative prospect hauls in return for the White Sox. So, the industry certainly doesn't value him as an average starter, even if that's what he was in terms of run prevention last year. After all, in 2022, Cease was the AL Cy Young runner-up, and over the last 3 seasons, he has a FIP of 3.40 and trails only Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, and Kevin Gausman in terms of strikeouts, so that would generally be accepted as his true talent level, independent of fluctuations in ERA. Except, I'm not totally sure Dylan Cease is trending in the right direction in terms of his peripherals. He lost over a tick of velocity on his fastball last year, and the pitch became somewhat of a liability at times. His slider, generally thought of as his best pitch, had a similar velocity decrease. As a result, his stuff became a little more hittable than usual. Batters had an 84% in-zone contact rate versus his pitches in 2023. In 2021 and 2022, they were below 80%. Across those 3 seasons, his strikeout rate has also dipped from 32% to 30% to 27%. That's still very good for a starter, mind you, but it's still a decrease. And what hasn't decreased is his walks. Cease led all MLB pitchers in walks in his Cy Young runner-up season with 78. In his 2023 follow-up, he walked 79. If Dylan Cease is still with the White Sox by opening day, they may regret not having traded him sooner. It's a dislike for me. Sorry. I'm gonna be really defensive about this one, so bear with me. Look, any old baseball crank could pick out a 6th or 7th inning reliever who drastically overperformed their FIP in 2023 and say, I don't like that guy. But I try to make these a little more interesting than that. Of all the elite closers in MLB, David Bednar is the one I can critique the most, and only barely. His ERAs the last 3 seasons were 2.23, 2.61, and 2 flat. He led the National League with 39 saves last year. I will now try my best to explain why that trend won't continue. Bednar's strikeout rate slipped a little in 2023, from 33% in 2021 and 2022, down to 29%. This was made up for by the fact hitters didn't fare particularly well, even when they made contact against his stuff, but across the small samples relievers deal with every year, they don't have that much control over the results of their batted balls. For example, he almost certainly won't replicate his minuscule 3.8 homer to fly ball percentage again. He also trended a little worse as the season rolled along. In August and September, he had an xFIP over 4 and blew a couple saves. Throughout the year, he continued to dominate with his four-seam fastball, but got middling results at times from his secondaries, a curveball and a splitter. The curveball in particular has never wowed across the various Stuff Plus models, and batters hit .333 off the splitter in 2023. Call it nitpicky all you want, but I could see this being a down year for Bednar, so I'm gonna be the one guy to dislike him for 2024, and if he's as good as he's been in a Pirates uniform once again, you'll still be entertained nonetheless. And if you want 5 bonus picks and an exclusive bonus video, you can head on over to the Foolish Baseball Patreon at patreon.com/foolishbaseball. Also, you can pledge today, look at everything on there, and as long as you cancel before the 1st of the month, so the 1st of April, you won't be charged, but obviously I'm hoping you like what you see.